Jerry Seinfeld, the Saatchi brothers, Claudia Roden, Bernard-Henri Lévy, Enrico Macias, Noah Yuval Harari. You might have heard of at least one of these people. They are all individuals who have made their name in various fields: television, advertising, philosophy, cookery, entertainment, science. What do they all have in common? They are, or descend from, Jewish refugees from Arab or Muslim lands. Yet when the world speaks of Middle Eastern refugees, it means Palestinian Arab refugees. The truth is, there were more displaced Jews from Arab countries since 1948 than Palestinians from Israel. 856,000 as against 711,000 according to UN figures. Some people call the Jewish exodus the greatest story never told. That's why I decided to write a book about them, Uprooted: How 3,000 Years of Jewish Civilization in the Arab World Vanished Overnight. Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon, Iran. Jewish communities in these countries had in many cases been in continuous existence for nearly 3,000 years, since biblical times. They predated Islam by 1,000 years or more. My own parents fled Iraq in 1950 to come to the UK, leaving all their property behind. I still had relatives in Iraq in the late 1960s. They were hostages to the regime, trapped in Iraq while Jews were being executed as spies. My aunt and cousins risked imprisonment when they were smuggled out of the country disguised as Arabs. After the 7th century Arab conquest, Jews, together with other indigenous peoples, found themselves subject to currents of Arabization and Islamization sweeping the region. Like Christians, Jews became dhimmis. This status gave non-Muslims few rights. They were allowed to practice their religion as long as they forfeited their right to self-defense on payment of a tax. In spite of their inferior status, the occasional pogrom and forced conversion, Jews made great contributions to their societies. They comprised up to a third of the residents of Baghdad. They were poets, thinkers, actors, translators, traders, musicians. The 20th century saw the rise of Nazi-inspired nationalism and Islamism. The Arab world imported European ideas of Jewish conspiracy and control. The Palestinian Mufti of Jerusalem, Haj Amin al-Husseini, who collaborated with the Nazis, was a particularly malign influence. He planned to kill the Jews wherever he found them, not just in Palestine, but across the Arab world. Until 1948, there were 1 million Jews living in the Middle East and North Africa. Then came a period of persecution and catastrophic decline. Today, there are barely 4,000 Jews left in the Arab world. In Iraq, there were 150,000 Jews. Today, there are 5. In Algeria, there were 130,000 Jews. Today, there are none. In Egypt, there were 80,000 Jews. Today, there are 13 or fewer. In Libya, there were 38,000 Jews. Today, there are none. There are still functioning communities in Morocco and Tunisia, but these comprise barely 1% of their former Jewish populations. Communities in Turkey and Iran have also dwindled dramatically in the last few decades. Needless to say, the Jews lost a huge amount of lands and property. Some say it is worth twice what the Palestinians left behind in Israel. The Jewish exodus is often linked with the creation of Israel, as if to infer that Israel caused the mass flight of Jews. In fact, Israel saved vast numbers of Jews from persecution and death. It organized mass airlifts and rescue operations. Yes, these Jews did suffer repercussions from the Arab-Israeli conflict, but I would argue that minorities with no Israel of their own, Copts, Berbers, Kurds, Assyrians, Yazidis, have also suffered from the Arab world's inability to tolerate difference. No Jew still calls himself a refugee. They all built new lives in Israel and the West. Why is the issue still relevant, you might ask? One, because the story of Jews forced out of Arab countries has been ignored, neglected, and falsified. Two, because justice delayed is justice denied. Three, because the rich heritage and contribution of the ancient Jewish communities must be honoured. Four, because Arab League states need to own up to their responsibilities for victimising their non-combatant Jewish citizens. Five, because greater exposure of the cause of Jews from Arab countries can help bring about reconciliation and peace. Half the Jews of Israel descend from refugees driven from Arab and Muslim lands. Whether you are Ashkenazi or Sephardi, whoever you are, Jew or non-Jew, you can help raise awareness of the Jewish refugee issue. My organisation, Harif, will help you. Show a film at your school, university, community centre or synagogue. Write to your MP. Write to your representative. Complain to the press and media if you hear a report on Palestinian refugees that does not also mention Jewish refugees. The story of the Jews from Arab and Muslim countries is part of the history of the Jewish people. It must not be erased. I'm Lynn Julius, author of Uprooted, How 3,000 Years of Jewish Civilization in the Arab World Vanished Overnight, and you're watching JTV.
To stay up to date with JTV content, click subscribe here if you're on YouTube and hit the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, hit the like button, and under following, click See First. If you enjoy watching JTV content and want to help us continue to grow, please consider making a donation to us by clicking here.